So she is scrying, and there is a different being looking out from her eyes. Her scent is different. Like something else is possessing her here when she is scrying for the mask.
It says only silver fire burned behind the eyes of the mask.
Right.
He doesn't say in Nesta's eyes.
So, I've been watching Drive to Survive on Netflix, which is, do you know what it is?
Nope.
Okay. It's the F1 documentary. Because we watched F1 on Apple TV. And then I was like, I know nothing about F1. And then they mentioned Drive to Survive in the movie. And I was like, oh, I think that's that F1 documentary that everyone talked about like 6 fucking years ago because it covers, it's 7 seasons, but it starts in the 2018. Wait, it's 2020. What year is it? 26? Okay, 8 years ago. It's awesome. It's so good. I actually think you would love it. I actually think you would love it because it's like the combination of sports, mechanical engineering, and competent business acumen. All in one. Like, it's so good. So 2 things. One, you know how I cry at sports. I've cried every episode. I've literally cried every episode. But the second thing is, this is how I know they didn't think women were going to watch this show when they made it. Every F1 team has like a principal. It's like the team manager and the coach. It's not the owner, but it's basically like the managing director of the team. There's a Red Bull team, and the team principal, I don't know if he's still the principal. I'm trying not to spoil myself, but in the 2018 season, it was this guy named Christian. And we're at home with Christian. We're following him around. He lives in Oxfordshire. He's got this lovely goat pen. And Christian's wife walks by on screen for just a second. And I go, holy shit, that's Ginger Spice. This man is married to a Spice Girl. And it's not even fucking mentioned in season 1. It's not even a plot point. And then she says something off screen and it says Jerry. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Ginger Spice. And this is like not even brought up. Not even a plot point.
You should have milked that a little earlier.
I know. I'm like, you have a living legend on your screen right now and you're talking to her fucking husband. What are you doing? But anyway. I think you would actually love it. I think you would be so into it.
I'll have to turn it on. Maybe it's a tonight thing.
I think Connor would like it too.
TV. I'm sure he'd love it. Yeah. I mean, if there's anyone who likes a combination of mechanical engineering and business more than I do, it's him.
It's Connor. Yeah.
Great. Perfect.
Yeah. And you'll know the moment I'm talking about. I think it's even in the first episode. Yeah, I think it's in the first episode. I literally was like, what? In the second season, they do have her on camera a bit more and acknowledge that she's a Spice Girl. But yeah, it's a great show. It's really interesting.
No, the Spice Girls?
I think men just don't really, well, straight men. The men who are watching F1, maybe, if we're talking about broad generalizations.
Yeah.
Maybe don't care about the Spice Girls.
You don't care about Spice Girls?
Yeah.
Weird. Lame.
Yeah.
So my sister, Connor, and I have started doing Soup Sunday.
Oh my God, that's awesome. No.
It's our way of combating seasonal depression. So we are on our 3rd Soup Sunday and we each rotate a soup. So I obviously have to have rotations on Sundays when we are not recording. Sunday was last Sunday.
Yeah.
Mine was chicken tortilla. This Sunday is Connor's Sunday. So he's currently doing French onion.
Oh, that sounds really good.
It sounds really good. I think it's pretty involved. I think it's a pretty involved soup.
Well, did he get cow bones from the butcher? Because
I don't think he got cow bones.
No.
But he did get ribeyes.
Yeah.
For the bone.
Yeah.
And now we just like have to have ribeye as well because like we have ribeyes.
Yeah, no. So he is doing it the proper.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really good. What a good day for French onion soup.
I know, right?
Yeah.
He was like, I guess we have to do, we didn't end up getting we don't necessarily have the proper ramekins.
Yeah.
But we have like something.
Yeah.
That will work. And then yesterday he was like, we're going to order some just so that we have them for the future.
You guys live in a fucking apartment. Where are you putting all this?
We actually have a lot of storage in our kitchen. We have a very good cook-friendly kitchen.
Yeah, you guys have a nice kitchen.
Which is hilarious because we don't necessarily have that much time to cook, but we do okay.
Yeah, I feel like you definitely do. Yeah.
So French onion soup right after this, and we have like baguette for like the whatever.
Yeah.
It's basically like French onion soup is literally like a bowl of cheese and bread with like some broth in between.
With beef broth and caramelized onions. Yeah, it's fucking perfect.
It is perfect, especially for this weather, which like guys, it's still winter storm fern.
Still fern.
Still in winter
We're still
storm
in fern. It's been a week and we are still in fern.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys traveled in time, but we are still here.
Fern.
Is still happening right there, right outside my window. Yes.
Good day for podcasting.
Indeed.
All right. I'm Abby.
And I'm Ronnie.
And this is Dragons in the Details, the podcast that helps you better understand your favorite fantasy books over the course of an undetermined number of episodes. We are currently covering A Court of Thorns and Roses, the series, also known as ACOTAR, by Sarah J. Maas. Disclaimer, these episodes, my God, every fucking time.
Every time. Episodes. I'm going to start editing like a toad face over your face every time you say
What is wrong with my brain? Okay. These episodes will contain spoilers for the entire ACOTAR series. We will announce any other Maasverse spoilers ahead of time, and we keep them to the second half of the Maasverse section. Disclaimer, this podcast is rated R. Do not listen to it with your children without a accompanying adult around. Each week, we typically dive into a specific topic in depth. This week, we are digging into another group of weirdly sentient magical items, the Dread Trove. We come with receipts. We have quotes to back up any theories, so you can follow along if you're skeptical. Ronnie, announcements.
Deep dive music, as always, brought to you by Schwoodley, aka Derek. Also, audio editing brought to you by Schwoodley, aka Derek. Thank you, Derek, for audio editing this podcast.
Yeah, if you guys have noticed that our audio has gotten us a little crisper, we have Derek to thank for that.
Yes, thank you, Derek. Also, thank you, Derek, for yelling at us when our voices are too loud so that we get better mics and stay further away from our microphones. We have been mentioning this every episode, and we are going to continue mentioning this every episode until we are there. We are winding down season 2. You guys might notice that we are getting a little bit deep now on ACOTAR. So we are coming to a close on season 2. Season 3 will be on Crescent City. So if you have not read Crescent City, we strongly recommend, if you want to continue listening to this podcast, that you start reading Crescent City if you are not already. They are long. They are long.
They are good.
They're good. They're great. We would not be covering them if they weren't. There are 3 books. Each of them are many, many, many chapters. So we would suggest starting, but they're awesome. The first book really grips you. Honestly, they're not hard to get into at all. Once you start, it's, in my opinion, really easy to keep going. So just pull trig. It's fun. Yeah. It's a good time. But we do suggest you start because we will be covering those in season 3, and we will also be taking a bit of a break. We don't exactly know how long that's going to be. It won't be too long, we promise. But we ourselves need to reread those books before we cover them. So we will be taking a little bit of a break between seasons as we brush up on that content for you guys.
I think it's fair to say, just to build on what you were saying about before, that we love Crescent City. We will never do a season on books that we don't love, because that would fucking suck for us. The amount of time that we spend reading these books.
So much time.
Yes. Some of you guys have asked, like, why we're not covering certain books. First of all, there's only so many hours in the day, but we don't want to spend time talking about a series that we don't love, because one of the things that we love is our enthusiasm and joy for these books. So yeah, that's just the point I'm trying to make. We're never going to give you a recommendation. We're never going to ask you to read books along with us that don't have our wholehearted stamp of approval on them, basically.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So Crescent City's fun. It's a good time. And while we're on that topic, reading the Maasverse is fun. So if you've not read Crescent City, if you've not read Throne of Glass and you want a richer experience, we suggest that you read it. It would behoove you to read it. That's all. If you like our content, if you think we're doing a good job, if you have suggestions for us, comment. If you watch our stuff, it would be awesome if you subscribe if you don't already. It would mean a lot to us. We want to be doing more of this, and in order to be able to do that, we need more subscribers.
We want to bring you guys more. We want to do this more. We want to conquer the world. So let's go.
If you like what we're doing, follow us. Thank you. All right. That's all I got. Anything else? Back to you.
All right. Corrections, omissions, social media shout out. So I have a social media shout out from Cassidy on Instagram who DM'd me this morning. And the theory was, it was about our library episode. And the theory was about Clotho being able to hear the thoughts between Rhys and Feyre in the library. We talked about this. Basically, Rhys and Feyre are communicating mind to mind, Daemati style. And Clotho has a little laugh, like she can hear their thoughts. So it's a very long theory. I'm not gonna read it all out word for word, but basically it boils down to the parallels between Clotho and Azriel, which I thought was really interesting. So Cassidy's point was basically that when Az's shadows came to him, he was being kept in near darkness and couldn't see and like going through an extremely traumatic event, right? And then he developed this basically, I mean, I know we're in a world with magic, but basically these like extra magic superpowers that helped him kind of navigate that environment, right? Clotho has been through serious trauma, right? And she can no longer speak and she can't use her hands. So what if she kind of developed, again, this like extra sensory superpower that allows her to hearing, basically, right? So like Az's shadows are kind of a seeing power and Clotho's hearing is basically kind of like an extra sensory. She can read thoughts now because she has lost the use of like her other limbs. It's kind of like a Batman type theory. I really liked it. I thought that was a really interesting parallel. It had never really occurred to me to compare those two characters. I think there could be totally something there. So
yeah, I like
good job, Cassidy. We love it.
Thanks, Cassidy.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting. We got a comment from Tangle Zoo about Striga and her Slavic mythology and the owl connection. Tanglezoo's point was owls consume prey whole and then spit up the owl pellets, which are just bones, fur, and feathers. So in a way, not that far off from the husks and weaving and even the bone carver twin element. So I thought that was interesting and a good connection. It's like basically that Striga can still kind of eat these people, but still have the remnants to like weave into her loom and leave husks and still be like complementary to her twin, the bone carver. I thought that was.
And how is Striga connected to owls? I forget.
There is I think we talked about a Slavic mythology connection between Striga and owls.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, fun.
All
right. Fun question. Ronnie, if you could and had to only wield one trove item ever, what would you pick?
Definitely the harp.
Yeah, right. Like
do not want to raise the dead or control people. Those are both weird things to do. So, like, definitely I'm wielding the harp.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I'm not a fucking psychopath.
I am not going to jail, so I would wield the harp. Okay, cool, good.
Okay, great. That was our fun question for the week. Maybe an easier one than normal. Easier than the soup question or the board game question.
I thought they were both fun. I don't know.
They were fun. They were fun. All right. Shall we deep dive?
Let's deep dive.
Ronnie, what are the powers of each trove item?
All right. We learn about the Dread Trove from Azriel in A Court of Silver Flames, chapter 20, when we find out that Brialyn is in league with Gaucher and is actually being somewhat manipulated by him as well. So we have all of their powers kind of laid out for us quite nicely. I'll read that passage, but then I'll also talk a little bit about each item and kind of when we see them wielded, just so that we have kind of concrete examples. He pointed Brialyn toward the Dread Trove, not for her sake, but for his own ends. He wishes to use it to free himself from his lake. This is Azriel saying. Gaucher wants Brialyn to use the Dread Trove. He wants it for his own freedom. What's the Dread Trove? Great question. The cauldron made many objects of power long ago, forging weapons of unrivaled might. Most were lost to history and war, and when I went into the prison, only 3 remained. At the time, some claimed there were 4, or that the 4th had been unmade, but today's legends only tell of 3. The mask, Rhys murmured, the harp, and the crown. Nesta had a feeling none of them were good. Good intuition, Nesta. Feyre frowned at her mate. They're different from the objects of power in the hewn city. What can they do? Then Amryn basically gives us all the answers we're asking for.
Thanks, Amryn.
Thanks, Amryn. Why do you know this? But thank you. The mask can raise the dead, Amren answered for Rhys. It is a death mask molded from the face of a long-forgotten king. Wear it and you may summon the dead to you, command them to march at your will. The harp can open any door, physical or otherwise, some say between worlds. And the crown, Amren shook her head, the crown can influence anyone, even piercing through the mightiest of mental shields. Its only flaw is that it requires close physical proximity to initially sink its claws into a victim's mind. But wear the crown, and you could make your enemies do your bidding, could make a parent slaughter their child, aware of the horror but unable to stop themselves. And those things were lost, Nesta demanded. And Rhys says those who possessed them grew careless and they were lost in ancient wars, or to treachery, or simply because they were misplaced or forgotten. Seems kind of wild that someone would just lose these, but okay. And then Amren continued, if you were to gather all three objects, you could use the potency of their combined made essence to track down the cauldron no matter where it is. And Asriel says they're capable of granting even a human army an advantage against the Fae. So the powers of each trove item directly answer the question according to Amren, right? The mask can raise the dead, the harp can open doors, physical doors, or doors between worlds, whatever the fuck that means. The crown can influence anyone, even through mental shields. So, like, forget your mental shields that Rhys has trained you in. Like, the crown can control you no matter what. So those are the trove items. They are said to also, all of them, have sentience and the ability to make you forget about them. This is all from the same chapter, by the way. This is all like Amren's giving a soliloquy, we are sat for a history lesson by Amren on the Dread Trove at this point.
This is what we call an exposition dump.
Yes. Amren is saying, made objects tend to not wish to be found by just anyone. Perhaps they willed it that way. They wanted to stay hidden. Cassian says, you say that as if the objects have a sentience. Amren says they do. They were made at a time when wild magic still roamed the earth and the Fae were not masters of all. Made objects back then tended to gain their own self-awareness and desires. It was not a good thing. Amren's face clouded with memory and a chill whispered over Nesta's spine. Rhys mused, just as I'm able to alter a mind to forget, perhaps they have a similar gift. But Briallen is made, Amren said. Nesta's mouth again went dry. When Briallen was made, it likely removed from her the Dread Trove's glamour, for lack of a better term. Recognized her as kin, where she might have glanced over a mention of the items before and never thought twice, now it's stuck. I'm going to skip a bit. If they're all enchanting you to forget, how is it that Asriel was able to remember and bear the information here? That is a great question. Perhaps once you learn of it, recognize that the spell is broken, Amren said, or perhaps the Dread Trove wants us to know of it now for some dark reason of its own. So these objects, according to Amren, have an ability to decide whether you can remember them or not, according to Amren. And Asriel apparently is permitted to be aware of them. Amren is apparently permitted to be aware of them. And there's also an illusion by Amren, right, that if you are made, like the Dread Trove is made, you can be aware of them too. Whatever sentience they have, whatever ability to hide themselves that they have, that doesn't apply to you. So there's that. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about each of these items because they're super fun and scary. The mask allows the user to command death. We see it wielded twice by Nesta. The first is in A Court of Silver Flames, chapter 36, in the bog of Orid. And the mask, I'll paraphrase this part because it's just a few lines, flies to her basically. So she's being dragged under by Kelpie. It's horrible. It's really honestly kind of rapey. Like the Kelpie wants to marry her and kill her at the same time. She's like, I gotta get out of here. Honestly, probably one of the more like graphic scenes in A Court of Silver Flames. Like she like urinates or like she wets herself. It's like horrible. But the mask is there and it flies to her hand. She's trying to call her own power and the mask comes to her instead of her power.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And then we leave her POV. Asriel and Cassian show up and they can't find her. They can only send her. And then the dead emerge from the bog. And this is their account of the dead emerging. Like a forest rising from the water, spear after spear after spear appeared. Then the helmets dripping water, some rusted, some shining, as if freshly forged. And beneath those helmets, skulls. Mother save us, Asriel whispered, and it was undiluted terror, not awe, hushing his voice as the dead rose from Urid's depths. A line of them, a legion. Some mere collections of upright bones, jaws hanging and eyes unseeing. Some half-preserved, decaying flesh flapping over exposed ribs. Judging by their fine armor, they were warriors and kings and princes and lords. They rose from the water, standing in the shallows near the thorny island. And as that golden light broke the surface before them, the dead knelt. Every word emptied from Cassian's head as Nesta too emerged from the water, as if lifted on a pillar from beneath. A golden mask sat upon her face, primitive but embossed with whorls and patterns, so ancient they'd lost all meaning. Water sluiced down her clothes, her hair had been ripped from its braid, and in her hand, clenched there, a kelpie's head dangled by its sheet of black hair, torn up face frozen in a scream, exactly as the King of Hybern's head had hung from her hand. Only silver fire burned behind the eyes of the mask. I'm skipping a bit. Her will was their will, her command their only reason for being. They had no self left, only her, only Nesta flowing through them. Skipping a bit again. Cold power rippled through them, and as it hit, Cassian let it surge past him, around him, yielded himself to it, because to stand against it would be to provoke the mask's wrath. To stand against it would be to stand against death itself, death herself. This part I think is really interesting. Azrael shook, weathering that primal power, but they were both Illyrian whether Az liked it or not, and so they did what their people had always done before death's beautiful face. They bowed. Chest deep in the water, they couldn't bow far, but they lowered their heads until their faces nearly touched the surface. Cassian lifted his eyes as he held the position and watched the gold of the mask's reflection dance upon the water. Then that gold shifted. He raised his head in time to see Nesta peel away the mask. So she is commanding death, obviously. All of the dead of the bog. Lucky for her, there's a fucking lot of people who have died in the bog. A lot of powerful people, warriors, kings, princes. And so the mask, in a way, it's basically like the crown for the dead. Anyone who's dead, they are yours to wield. But even so, there's also an urge to bow down to it. Cassian and Azrael are like, okay, let me yield to death as well, and death will spare me. And so that's one. And then, of course, the second is when Feyre is dying in chapter 77. She puts on the mask, the harp, and the crown all at the same time. And the way that she uses the mask in that scenario is she tells death to stop.
Yeah.
And that is
different power.
Different power. Yeah.
Different power.
She's actually commanding death in that situation. Not the dead, death incarnate, hovering, about to take Feyre. And she said, like, that quote is pretty short. The death that Nesta felt around her sister, around Rhysand, around the babe in Mor's arms, she bade the mask to halt that too. Hold it at bay. So she's saying, nope, just wait a second. And that works too. Yeah. Somehow.
Yeah.
So you can command the dead and you can command death with the mask. Interesting. Anything else on the mask?
Yeah, I have a couple more things. Of all of the items in the trove, the power of the mask seems to most closely mirror Nesta's power. So we just read that quote where when she reaches for her power, the mask comes instead because we're told it's because it's a like cause to like situation. But we also get your power and the mask are similar enough that to reach for one was to reach for the other. Also, a lot of imagery of the mask's power being cold as well, right? So we get blood was a cold song, the mask a slithering echo to it, whispering of all she might do. Home, it seemed to sigh, home. Nesta did not refuse it, only embraced it, letting its magic, colder than her own and as old, flow into her veins. So the mask has its own separate cold power that is very similar to Nesta's, but it is not Nesta's. And we don't get that with the harp. We don't get that with the crown. We really only get that with the mask.
Yeah.
We have I just have a couple more quotes to read about that cold power. You just read it, right? But cold power rippled toward them, and as it hit, Cassian let it surge past him, around him, yielded himself to it. Again, we have, because to stand against it would to be provoke the mask's wrath. To stand against it would be to stand against death itself, death herself. We have Feyre describing Nesta's power as death with a capital D. This is also death with a capital D. And we know that Nesta's power is cold. Helion, we read this in the last quote, right? In the last episode too, but Helion about the mask says, doesn't it rake its cold claws down your senses? So basically, mask and Nesta's power is very, very, very similar. Nesta even says she felt herself beckoned to the mask after it is in a warded room that no one should be able to enter. They find Nesta in the room. And she says, the door was open, Nesta said numbly. The mask opened the door for you, Amryn demanded. I found myself beckoned here, Nesta said. So I'd say her strongest connection is with the mask. There is also an idea here, I think, that when she wears the mask, she is actually channeling something else, someone else's power. And the reason I say that is when she is scrying for the mask, Cassian says her scent changes. So the quote we get for that is, when Nesta didn't respond, they all looked at her. None of them dared ask about that power, the being that had looked out at him. This is when Cassian goes to kiss Nesta when she's crying. None of them had dared ask about that power, that being that had looked out at him, the one he'd melted away with his kiss. He could still taste that ice on his tongue, smell the scent similar to hers, yet wholly different, right? So she is scrying, and there is a different being looking out from her eyes. Her scent is different. Like something else is possessing her here, basically, when she is scrying for the mask. And then she said she had never experienced anything like the mask's power. The Kelpie at least had felt real. Her terror and anger and desperation had all been human, ordinary feelings. As soon as she donned the mask, those feelings had vanished. She had become something that did not need air to breathe, something that did not understand hate or love or grief or fear. So she's becoming something else. I feel like this might actually be the power of the mask, that when you put on the mask, you start channeling the power, the being. You are basically overtaken by something else that death bows to. I don't know what that is, but it feels like that is what's actually happening. And I know Cassian speculates at one point that the mother is what he's seeing when Nesta puts on the mask. I'm not totally convinced it is the mother, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
I was going to say, doesn't he, like, he says 2 times. One, he says in chapter 77 that he thinks he sees the mother. And then when she's walking out of the bog, I know he doesn't say that he sees somebody else, but he does say, like, only silver fire burned behind the eyes of the mask. He doesn't say, like, Nesta.
In Nesta's eyes, right. Right.
He doesn't say in Nesta's eyes. He says only silver fire burned behind the eyes of the mask. It's almost
implying
like she's
it's
not her.
Other. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. So I think the question is, if someone else put on the mask, would they also have silver fire appearing behind their eyes?
Yeah.
I don't know. I am led to believe yes, based on the wording of these things, but we haven't had anyone else try this.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
And then the only other quote I have about the mask that I think is important to note, Amren tells us that actually anyone can wear the mask, but only made people can take it off. So the quote we have for that is, "You're lucky to have been able to pry it from your face. Most of those who have worn it could never remove it. In order to sever it, they had to be beheaded. It's the cost of the power. You can raise an army of the dead to conquer the world, but you can never be free of the mask. Like calls to like, reset. Others could not free themselves because the mask did not recognize their power. The mask rode them, not the other way around. Only one made from the same dark source can wear the mask and not be ruled by it." So who is Nesta channeling? I don't know, but her scent changes. Right? It is not Nesta. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. The crown. So we see a few times that the crown is used as well. The first is technically secondhand, and that's when we see Autumn Court soldiers who are still in the crown's control, right? So same time, we're seeing a lot of trove items wielded in the bog board. According to Silver Flames chapter 34, Azriel and Cassian are fighting Autumn Court soldiers in the Bog of Orid. This is when Nesta decides that she's going to go looking for them and ends up in the bog. And Azriel and Cassian notice that they have no awareness, the soldiers, and that they seem strangely vacant. And that's the soldiers have fought viciously with sword and flame, yet they hadn't spoken to their opponents or to one another. These two seemed as unfocused and blank as their comrades. Something is wrong with them, Azriel murmured as the two soldiers simply stared up at them with violence in their eyes. Violence, but no recognition or awareness that they were now at the mercy of the Night Court and would soon learn how that court got answers out of their enemies. Cassian sniffed. It's smelled like they haven't had a bath in weeks. It doesn't matter. The rest of this doesn't matter. Later, once they're captured, Reese tries to get into their minds, but finds nothing but fog and mist. So he tries to read their minds, and it's just fog and mist. So it's not even like the crown is altering thoughts the way that Daemati alter thoughts. It's literally just, you can't see it. It's just clouded. And then Reese brings in Helion, says, "Can you figure out what's wrong with them?" Because of course he has an inkling, but classic Reese, similar to what he did with the bone carver, he's like, "Let me just confirm." In chapter 41, and asks Helion to take a look. So Feyre asks Helion, are the soldiers enchanted? Helion had spoken to and briefly touched the hands of the 2 Autumn Court soldiers chained in that room, kept alive and fed by Rhys's magic. Helion's face had tensed when he touched their hands, and he'd then murmured that he'd seen enough. Enchanted isn't the right word, Helion said, frowning. Their bodies and actions are indeed not their own, but no spells lie upon them. I can feel spells like threads, ones that can enchant, feel like bindings around an individual. I sense none of that. So what ails them? Rhys asked. I don't know, Helion admitted with unusual gravity. Rather than a thread, it was more like a mist, a fog, exactly as you described it, Rhysand. There was nothing to grasp onto, nothing tangible to break, yet it was there. Rhys asked, does it feel less like a spell and more like an influence? And then Cassian's internally freaking out. Helion rubbed his jaw. I can't explain how, but it's as if this fog around their minds sways them. He noted their expressions. What is it? And then Feyre says the crown, part of the Dread Trove. Poor Helion's just like a fucking science experiment in that moment. They're like, what do you think? It's like Socratic method. In a way, we get the description of the crown without actually being told it's the crown. And so then we also get evidence, of course, of the proximity, right? So these Autumn Court soldiers were very far from whoever it was that had them in their thrall, but they were clearly still in their thrall. And their spell was undetectable. It was all just fog and mist. You could not see kind of who had influenced them. You couldn't really even see what they were tasked to do. You could just see nothing. The second time we see the crown used is when Briallen uses it on Cassian, and that's A Court of Silver Flames, chapter 71 through 73. She says, I have need of you, Lord of Bastards. The ancient-looking queen seethed. Cassian could say nothing, couldn't move. The crown glowed like molten iron. Briallen ordered Cochet, winnow us. Side note, I kind of think that Cochet might be entirely possessing Briallen, because one other person calls Cassian Lord of Bastards, right? And it's the Bone Carver.
And it's the Bone Carver. Good theory. Good fucking theory. I love it. Yeah.
I don't know why Briallen would call Cassian Lord of Bastards.
Well, and we talked about in our Cochet episode how fucking ballsy she is with him, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's feeling like Cochet is just completely acting through Briallen at this point.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I just had a terrible thought. What if the women under Cochet's curse just have him behind them, and Vasa is also
a sleeper agent?
Yeah.
A spy? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Has anyone peered into her head? Oh, but Helion and Rhys did peer into her head, right? To try to unbind the spell. Maybe not her brain, though. Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean this is just them looking into the crown. Cochet is not.
Yeah. She could be.
Yeah. It's not the same thing. I don't know. Anyways, I think that Lord of Bastards seems to be why'd you call him that? And then in chapter 73, of course, is the moment that Nesta encounters Cassian and realizes that he is in the crown's thrall. And that's when Briallen says he can't obey you, Nesta Archeron, he's mine now. Cassian could not even widen his eyes in warning. His arms loosened on the queen's silent command, allowing Nesta to turn in his embrace, presenting her to Briallen, who wore the crown atop her thin, white hair. And then, of course, in chapter 74, we see Briallen order Cassian to kill Nesta, and she only says kill. And Briallen orders Cassian to kill, which is not specific enough. And so he turns the dagger on himself, and then Nesta loses her shit and kills Briallen, which is a good thing.
A good thing.
And we already talked a bit at the beginning of this episode about how Cassian is able to fight the influence of the crown a surprising amount, which is only a little bit. But I do think that Nesta's made influence and even just sheer will makes that reasonable, in my opinion.
I would agree. But we do get one
from the crown
fucked up moment with the crown from Cassian's point of view when he's being controlled by it. And this is chapter 73 again. He was screaming silently, endlessly, screaming at her to fight him, to run, screaming at himself to stop it, but he couldn't. No matter what he did, he couldn't stop it. Cassian, Nesta said, struggling, kill me. He silently begged her, kill me before I have to do this. So the Fae is still inside him, so to speak. And that means all of Eris's soldiers were also present and there and just couldn't control what they were doing. So they were murdered. Cassian murdered them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and I think we knew that actually all along. When Amryn describes the crown's powers, she says You can make a parent murder their child and they would be aware of the terror but unable to stop it.
And here we're seeing that in action.
Yeah. Horrible.
Yeah.
Fucked up.
I have one more thing here. We have the line, the storm halted, cleared away to reveal the pale gray sky before dawn, the last of the stars winking out. Even nature could be influenced by the crown. Which I think is a really random line. That's in Silver's Flames chapter 74, but basically it's the sun rising and Nesta saying even nature could be influenced by the crown. I don't know why that's in here. We've gotten no indication. We've got no indication the crown could do that. So let's just put that
over there. I think I'm just not gonna. What are we gonna do? Make it storm? Like,
I don't know. I don't know. All right, cool.
All right, the harp. So the harp is definitely the most versatile.
Yeah.
And frankly confusing as far as what it's actually capable of, in my opinion. And maybe confusing is the wrong word. Maybe just versatile is the right word. But I think it's also open-ended because we see what it's capable of in select environments, but we definitely haven't seen the full extent. Like there's allusions to like what happens if it plays melody, what happens if you pluck more strings, and we only have a few strings that are plucked at any given time. So Nesta, of course, finds the harp underneath the prison right on top of any pointed star. So that's in A Court of Silver Flames, chapter 53. You have maybe just go listen to the prison library deep dive before you finish this episode. I would recommend it. I think they're good build-ups to this. But Nesta, I'll paraphrase here, is shown the harp by an accidental scrying when she is at a service in the library, being sung to by the priestesses some texts that were found in a very deep level in the library. Then she finds it in the chamber. And there is a moment where she is basically remembering a time that the harp was last used, and the memory is not hers. So she picks up the harp, and she is shown this memory of Faye screaming, clawing at the stone. She doesn't really understand what's happening, but it seems like these Faye are like, how could you lock me out? How could you lock me out? Let me in. There's children, whatever. She sees Briallen. So there's like a bridge open to Briallen, and Briallen sees her, and she can't let go of the harp, which is really interesting. It says Nesta clutched the harp to her chest, the last of its reverberations echoing through her. She had to let go. Somehow, in touching the harp while Briallen was wearing the crown, she had opened a pathway between their minds, their eyes. She could see Briallen, and Briallen could see her, could sense where she was. She had to let go. She couldn't do more than twitch her fingertips as invisible, oppressive weight bore into her, like it flattened her into dust upon the ground. Let go, she silently bade it, gritting her teeth, fingers brushing over the nearest string. Free me, you blasted thing. A beautiful, haughty voice answered, full of music so lovely it broke her heart to hear it. I do not appreciate your tone. With that, the harp pushed into her harder, and Nesta roared silently. Her nails scraped over the string again. Let me go. Shall I open a door for you, then? Release that which is caught. Yes, damn you, yes. It has been a long while, sister, since I played. I shall need time to remember the right combinations. So the harp is calling her sister. Harp is calling Nesta sister. Don't play games. Nesta chilled at the word it had used. Sister. Like she and this thing were one and the same. The small strings are for games, light movement and leaping, but the longer final ones, such deep wonders and horrors we could strum into being. Such great and monstrous magic I wrought with my last minstrel. Shall I show you? No, just open up these wards. That's Nesta. As you wish, pluck the first string then. Nesta didn't hesitate as her fingertip curled over the first string, grasping and then releasing it. A musical laugh filled her mind, but then the weight lifted, vanished. So Nesta says, just open up these wards. A harp, or whoever's talking, says, sure, fine, pluck the first string. Nesta says, cool. Then Nesta is able to let go of the harp, able to get up. The very air seemed lighter, looser, like opening another doorway had shut the one to Briallen. Then we've got Cassian in the corner freaking out. She's like, I'm fine, I'm good, but I think someone really wicked used this last. I think they used it to trap their enemies and their enemies' children into the stone itself. Was that what had been happening to her just now? The harp had been pushing her into the rock, fusing her soul with it. So now we've got the harp breaking down wards, the harp fusing her soul with the rock powers, right? So like I know Amron said doors opening, wards and fusing soul with rock. Those two things seem a little bit different. Then we find out that Lanthus's cell has been opened, and Lanthus is like, I did it, but like obviously it was the fucking harp. So the harp released Lanthus, and we're given even more reason to believe that the harp is breaking down wards when fucking Autumn Court soldiers just storm the prison that is blood keyed.
Yeah.
So I know that we're told in the text that since Rhys had lowered the shields around the prison, they'd walked right in. I call bullshit on this. I think the Harp, when Nesta said, open up these wards, the Harp is like fucking with her and was like, okay, I'll open all the wards, bitch. And opened up all the wards.
Yeah.
Which I think could also explain why Rhys felt the need to ward, like maybe Rhys actually knew that the Harp was there all along. Like, and Rhys felt the need to ward the shit out of the prison. I don't know. That's a little bit cuckoo. But the Harp also says that its music will free you of earthly rules and borders. So the Harp is basically like, I can do anything. And so she's able to transport to Cassian using the first string. So she says, take me to Cassian, plucks the string, goes to Cassian. Cassian's dying. She plucks a few more strings and is able to get back to Valaris. So she says, hold on to me, Cassian. She plucks 3 strings and says, it's like a port key. She's like, the front lawn of Feyre's house along the Seeger River in Valaris. Then she plucks some strings and then she is taken there. So again, she's able to basically winnow equivalent out of the prison. So the Harp is defying whatever wards are around the prison.
Yeah.
All of the ancient, unbreakable wards that are supposedly around this prison. The Harp is just like, well, la-di-da, like, I'm just going to take you right back to Valaris. So the Harp moves you. It says it opens doors, but it doesn't seem to leave doors open. It just takes you wherever it's taken you. It also seems to fuse souls with objects. And it also says there's a moment where Nesta says she didn't want to know where all 26 strings might take her if strummed or if someone made a melody. So there's a lot of open-endedness here. It can probably do other things if a melody is played. We've seen it do some stuff. In chapter 77, we also see her use it to stop time, right? So if you don't feel like moving or doing any of this other crazy shit, you can stay right where you are and stop time by just plucking the 26 string. But it can probably also do a lot of other stuff by plucking more strings or playing songs.
I totally agree. I think we've seen like a sliver of the full power of the Harp. And I've put this out here before. I'll put it out here again. The fact that last string is time and we're dealing with interdimensional like movement and travel. I think time travel is probably on the table. So I don't have anything concrete to back that up, but that's just how I'm feeling right now.
Certainly.
We are told, so about the Harp being able to connect their minds, we do have an actual quote for that kind of fits within the powers we've been told. So it says, somehow in touching the Harp, or did you read this quote? While Brie Allen was wearing the crown, she had opened a pathway between their minds. Right. So it is like opening a door between their minds. Yeah. However, I imagine, obviously that was used for evil here. But now that we have all the items of the Trove in our possession, I imagine that could probably be a very useful thing to have.
Maybe we could use it for good.
Maybe we could use it for good. There's a moment where it seems to kind of hypnotize her. So what we have is, yes, she'd play the Harp and there would be nothing but music until the stars died out. Play, I have so long wished to play, it said, and she could have sworn she heard a smile within the sound. What might my song unlock in here? So it's like very seductive, very hypnotic, seems to be trying to kind of influence her mind a bit. We don't get that with the crown. We don't get that with we don't get that with the crown. We don't get that with the mask. Yeah. We also have this, it looks newly polished, she observed to Cassian, who watched from the archway. How is that possible? It exists outside the bindings of time, just as the cauldron does, also pointing to me towards some kind of time manipulation. And then, I don't really have much more to add. I'm trying to think if anything here is really that important. I don't really think so. Other than we have 26 strings on the Harp, and we know that Meryl is researching 26 possible dimensions. So do we have one string per dimension? Doesn't really seem like it, given that 2 to 3 strings gets you to Valaris. Yeah.
And we got to Valaris.
Yeah. But I agree.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Abby. What happens when you wear all 3 items of the Trove at the same time?
Okay. I'm going to preface with this. I'm not really sure, if I'm being honest. So before this obviously happens when Nesta is saving Feyre's life at the end of Silver Flames. Before Nesta puts on any item of the Trove, she can see death in the room, right? The quote for that is, but death, again, this is capital D, death hovered nearby. Nesta felt it, saw it. She literally saw it. A shadow thicker and more permanent than any of Azriel's. Elaine sobbed, squeezing Feyre's hand, pleading with her to hold on. And Nesta stood in the midst of it, death swirling around her, and there was nothing to be done. as Feyre's breathing thinned and Maja began shouting at her to fight it. So that's not the trove, right? This ability to sense death, that's Nesta's power. She wore the mask, she placed the crown atop her head, and she cradled the harp in her arms. No one had ever wielded all three and lived. No one could contain their power, control them. Nesta's eyes blazed with silver fire behind the mask, and Cassian knew the being that looked out was neither fey nor human nor anything that walked the lands of this world, right? So again, we have that idea of the being. So I think this is really interesting, and I actually missed this the first time I read it. When she is wearing all three items of the trove, she seemingly is able to control Rhys's body for a moment, the way that Rhys can control other people's bodies, right? So Nesta held up a hand and Rhys went still as Cassian had gone under the crown's control. So that's the crown influencing Rhys there. She plucks the 26th string and time stands still. It was time. The 26th string on the harp was time itself, and Nesta stopped it as Feyre took her last breath. Lanthus had said as much, that even death bowed to the final string, that time was of no consequence to the harp. So we have her stopping time a second before Feyre's last breath, right? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, too, to think of if the mask is death, that death is bowing to the harp. Like there's this kind of hierarchy within the trove. I think that's an interesting idea. And then you mentioned this in the mask power section, but she bade the mask to hold death at bay. And the quote is, and the death that Nesta felt around her sister, around Rhysand, around the babe in Mor's arms, she bade the mask to halt that too, hold it at bay. I wrote, new skill unlocked. Now the mask can stop death as well as control the dead. Also, this means Feyre was not actually dead in this scene, right? She's a moment away from death, but Nyx is certainly dead, right? And everyone's about to die. And then, again, she is seemingly taken over by whatever this being is that inhabits the mask. Unclear if this is the mother or something else. We get, in the end, there was darkness and nothing more. A soft, familiar voice whispered the words as they had been whispered to her long ago, as it warned her in Urid's darkness.
I don't know that Nyx is dead. It says the death that Nesta felt around her sister, around Rhysand, around the babe in Mor's arms. So I know that Nyx was born silent. I don't know that Nyx was born dead.
Okay. I think he's silent and not moving.
Sure.
Yeah.
He could still have a heartbeat.
He could still have a heartbeat.
It's unclear.
Here's what I'm getting at. When Nesta is wearing all three items of the trove, she uses all three of them the way they're meant to be used. But it's not like there's an extra power here or something extra special like happens here. As far as I could tell, it is just using each item of the trove in the way that we know it has been designed to be used, except for the fact that she seems to be able to make a bargain with the cauldron, and then the cauldron or something is able to push out that iridescent light. So what happens is Nesta makes a bargain with the cauldron. She says, I give it all back. I promise I give it all back. We get iridescent light began flowing from Nesta's body into Feyre. The light glimmered down Feyre's arms, her legs. It suffused her ashen face, began to fill the room. Tendrils of light between the sisters, and one, delicate and loving, floated toward the bundle in her arms, setting the silent babe within glowing bright as the sun. She wears all the items of the trove. She's able to make a bargain with the cauldron. Feyre tried to make a bargain with the cauldron, but she didn't succeed. Maybe you need to have the trove to make that bargain. I don't know. And then she is able to use the bargain with the cauldron to bring back Feyre and Nyx, or at least bring them back from the brink of death if they're not fully dead. But that was not the inherent powers of the trove, right? That was whatever bargain she made with the cauldron that let her do that.
Yeah. It's interesting because we're told a lot of things are supposed to happen when you wield all three of the trove. No one really knows. Maybe there's this greater power, but then when we observe it in Nesta, it seems like it's just that power. I mean, yes, she can commune with the cauldron, she can commune with the mother, but she was already able to, in my opinion.
Certainly with the mother, yeah. We get this too from Az. So that's kind of my analysis of that scene where we see Nesta wearing all three. But from Az, we have what Vasa suspected is true. The Death Lord Crochet has been whispering in Briallen's ear. He remains trapped at his lake, but his words carry on the wind to her. He is ancient, the depth of his knowledge fathomless. He pointed Briallen toward the bread trove. He pointed Briallen toward the Dread Trove, not for her sake, but for his own ends. He wishes to use it to free himself from his lake. So he's planning to use all three items of the Dread Trove to free himself from his lake, which is very different from what Nesta uses all three items of the Dread Trove to do, in my opinion. I mean, seems to me like you would really only need the harp to free yourself from the lake. I don't know why you need all 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amren says if you were to gather all 3 objects, you could use the potency of the combined made essence to track down the cauldron. So maybe it is, like to your point, Nesta was able to make this bargain with the cauldron. Maybe Cachet needs the cauldron for some reason.
Yeah.
And we have hidden the cauldron.
And we have hidden the cauldron. Yeah. Yeah, maybe that is it. Maybe because it's on Cretia. Cretia. I think. Cretia,
I don't know.
Yeah.
You tell us, guys.
You tell us. Let us know.
Cretia or Cretia?
Because, right, so maybe, like, the cauldron's off the board, but when you wear all 3 items of the trove, you can
find it.
Channel it. You can find it. Yeah. And that could work.
Okay, let's move on.
Cool. All right, friends, that is the end of our ACOTAR only section. From here on out, we are going to be talking full Maasverse spoilers. So if you have not read Crescent City, if you have not read Throne of Glass, we recommend you leaving now so that you do not get spoiled. But again, if you want to join us next season, we highly recommend you read Crescent City. We highly recommend you read Throne of Glass as well, because it's super fun. As always, you can follow us on social media. We are Dragons in the Details Pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We are on Facebook. I keep forgetting to mention that. We are on Facebook. We are Dragons in the Details Pod on Facebook.
For Facebook.
We are on Discord. You can email us. You can pretty much get in contact with us however you want to. We love hearing from you guys. It's the best. And if you like what we do, if you're a fan, please follow us. Please like, please comment, please subscribe on whatever platform you prefer. We are going to start talking about the Maasverse at the end of this sentence. Okay. Maasverse cosms, Ronnie.
Yes. Okay. Pretty pertinent to this episode. Got a shout out for one of our Discorders, LMNOP. You may know her as the mayor of our Discord. She wrote in our Maasverse episode chat channel, quick thought about Striga's song. She was singing when she didn't know that Feyre was there. And humans sang the song too, way before Feyre and Nesta existed. What if it's a classic murder ballad? Love a murder ballad. With older roots. What if instead of how a violin was made, it's how the harp was made, which I think is kind of fun. Maybe the harp has a personification that we did not otherwise think of. And Striga is singing the song of the harp's origin. I think that would be fun. Thank you, LMNOP.
Striga made the harp. It's made of human bits or fey bits. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point of the Twa Sisters murder ballad.
That's true.
Yeah. Is that the harp would be made of a human.
Entrails, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I have a couple. Person that Nesta seems to be channeling when she wears the mask. I mean, it just feels like the mask is really closely tied to the powers we've seen from Deanna. Not to bring up Deanna yet again, but like I feel like I would be remiss. Yeah. So we're getting strong Deanna vibes from the mask, not as much from the other items of the trove.
Mm-hmm.
When Nesta is leaving the harp chamber after she has claimed the harp, we have the quote, "The words tumbled out as Nesta waded back through the ward-heavy cavern, feeling the center spot, the star at its heart, like a physical presence at her back. Those vast, light hands seemed to pull at her, trying to make her return, but she ignored them, explaining to Cassian what she'd heard from the harp, at what she'd seen in the vision with Brianna. So the 8-pointed star, which contains Celine's power, is pulling her back, saying, don't leave yet. I'm not done with you. And you speculated last week that Celine was actually talking to Nesta, not to Bryce. I still don't know how this works, but I think we're seeing more evidence for it. And the vision that the harp bestows upon Nesta, right? Nesta says she thinks that's the last time that the harp was used. I think we know that's not true because I believe we see Celine using the harp to create the prison, right? Doesn't she use the harp to like close the walls of the palace and to create the cells? That only just occurred to me, but I think she does use the harp to do it. All right, so we have the quote here. So traced her fingers over the stone like she could somehow reach across the stars to her sister. A seed of starlight began to form at her fingertips. So that's the end. That's kind of the end of the video where Celine has just come back from Midgard. Then we get the vision went dark. Then Celine's face appeared again, older, worn. Her clear blue eyes looked out with a steady gaze. My strength waned, she said. I hope that my life has been spent wisely, atoning for my mother's crimes and foolishness and love and trying to make it right. I carved these tunnels, the path here, so some record of it might exist of what we were, what we did. But first I had to erase it all from recent memory. Her face faded away and more images began, a faster montage. Selene walking away from the harp and through the beautiful halls of a palace carved into the mountain, this mountain. So we have kind of a gap between when Selene is walking away from the harp and the end of Selene getting back from Midgard. So my point of all of this is, I'm not sure that this is Nesta seeing the last time the harp is used, or if this is Nesta seeing a piece of Selene's video, right? Because that's what's pulling her back. It's this message, this story that Selene is trying to tell her. It's this magic. And if the harp is also kind of part of that, it's in the harp chamber. Like, is it actually the video basically being, because we know the harp can open doors between minds. Is the harp opening a channel between Selene's magic and Nesta's brain and showing her the video here? I don't know.
And it's where the harp was too. That's the harp is showing her what happened where she was standing.
Where she was standing. Yeah, which is what Selene's, we're calling it a video, but it is actually Selene's magic. It is her power. It is her soul. And we know the harp can transfer magic. We'll get into that later. So that's kind of my thinking on that. I also have a social media shout out also about Koschei. So I put up a slideshow about our theories about what's in Koschei's box based on Slavic folklore. We had a comment from Amanda on Instagram, and they wrote, okay, wait, when you said onyx box, I thought of a certain box at the bottom of a certain ocean, but that's actually glass now that I think of it. But there's also the black box with the death marks in it. I believe the box you are referring to, Amanda, is the box that contains the soul of Victoria, aka Vic. So the quote we get, and Vic as to remind, is Vic a wraith? I actually don't remember what Vic is. Yeah. Vic is a wraith who worked with Hunt to steal synths so that they could overthrow the Asteri. And then as part of her punishment, what happens is they're on the Death Charger the Depth Charger, not the Death Charger in Sky and Breath Chapter 5. The quote we get is, through the glare of the first light beams atop the remote submersible, more fleshy white bits floated by. This was what the Wraith Victoria had been damned by Micah to endure. The former Archangel had shoved her essence into a magically sealed box, while the Wraith remained fully conscious despite having no corporeal form, and dropped her to the floor of the Melano Trench. I actually think this is a great call, even though that's a glass box, right? Because I basically think this shows that what we're talking about, which is Koschei's soul, or Koschei's death, whatever you kind of want to call it, being trapped in the box at the bottom of an ocean works, right? Like, I do think that might be like what Koschei's essence is like at this point. It's just in that box, and we've seen that it's doable, basically. But also, how did Micah do this? How did an Archangel do this? This is the power of the harp, right? Like, removing someone's soul from their body is basically the power of the harp. How did Micah do it? I don't know. And then the only other omission, which I think we'll talk about later, but the harp, the last power of the harp, the true power of the harp, I would possibly say we get in Crescent City, this is from Selene again. She gave us what protection her magic could offer, transferring it from her body into our own using the harp. Another secret she had learned from her long ago masters, that the harp could not only move its bearer through the world, but move things from one place to another, even move magic from her soul to ours. I think that's actually the true power of the harp, and I'll get into why later, but I think that's just like a huge, huge omission here. Yeah. Okay.
I think we'll get into that, but
Me too.
I think the harp is pretty versatile. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Ronnie, our last item of the trove. What is the power of the horn?
Yes. So when Amryn said there was maybe a fourth, there was a fourth, obviously. It is in a different world, though. So the horn is the mysterious fourth trove item, and it opens and closes bridges, basically, between worlds. So in House of Earth and Blood, Chapter 2, we learn that Luna's horn was an ancient Fey relic that was basically stolen from its resting place in Luna's temple. It was broken shortly after the Northern Rift was sealed and basically didn't work anymore. And we learn, of course, that Danica stole the horn via Sabine in House of Earth and Blood, Chapter 49. And then Danica had it grounded to a powder and tattooed into her bestie Bryce's back. And we learned this from aforementioned Archangel Micah in chapter 77, House and Earth and Blood. You don't just have the horn, you are the horn. You became its bearer the night Danica had it ground into a fine powder, mixed it with witch ink, and then got you so drunk you didn't ask questions when she had it tattooed onto your back. I'm skipping a bit. But Bryce said, cool as that sounds, Governor, the statue says, and then he interrupts her and says, the language is beyond that of this world. It is the language of universes, and it spells out a direct command to activate the horn through a blast of raw power upon the tattoo itself, just as it once did for the Starborn Prince. You may not possess his gifts like your brother, jokes on Micah, but I believe your bloodline and the synth shall compensate for it when I use my power upon you to fill the tattoo. To fill you with power is in essence to blow the horn. And of course we know that Bryce has the power. The horn will open a portal and allow me to summon an army to decimate the human rebels and end their wanton destruction. The one who possesses the horn at full power can do anything. And then he says perhaps establish oneself as an Asteri. But the horn opens portals. And I actually, when I first started looking into this question, found it kind of confusing to clearly delineate the harp versus the horn. But then I think it becomes pretty clear when Selene and Helena are using the harp and the horn together, right? To help Selene escape, basically. So in House of Earth and Blood, Chapter 88, Micah effectively does infect Bryce with synth, unfortunately, to open, and he opens gates to hell all over the fucking city, causes a whole ruckus. And then Bryce uses the horn to close those portals. So that's like the primary mechanism of this horn. And the horn like opens these gates and closes these gates, and they're just open. Whereas the harp actually is more of like a transport device.
You said the horn is more temporary and the harp is more permanent?
No, the opposite. The horn is more permanent and the harp is more temporary, I think. Because Micah opens the gates to hell and then the gates are just, like, fucking
I agree
open.
with you. Yeah. The gates are fucking open. Yeah.
And then Bryce has to close them. And then we see Selene and Helena wield the horn and the harp kind of like in tandem, right? After Thea gives them her light. So I don't really know that they could have done this before, but that's a different conversation and a different question. So Selene wields the harp. She like uses the harp to get back to Prythian, and then the horn blasts, and the horn kind of like seals her back into Prythian and closes that gate. So that's, I'm like, we need to do a horn episode because I
do think we should preface this with, we will do a horn episode. Like, this is not our Crescent City season. We will do a full horn episode.
So there's a fourth trove item. It's the horn. It opens and closes gates into other worlds. Is there anything you would add that's worth adding in this episode? It's in Bryce's back. It's not like it's not an item anymore. So like, what happens when Bryce dies? I don't know.
What happens when Bryce dies? I too am confused on the differences between what the horn can do, what the harp can do. I have some theories there in Pre-cog. It is wild to me that the Asteri that know exactly what the horn is allowed it to sit in a tourist attraction for millennia. I know there's a line that they tried to fix it, but they just let it fucking sit there for anyone to take. Like, what are you doing? What's the idea here? Yeah. I mean, so, I mean, it's basically what you said. It can be used to open a gate. We see it both used in archways, used in the crystal archways throughout Crescent City. We see Bryce use the horn to open portals through those. We see her opening the Northern Rift and directing it to Prythian instead of to Hell. We also, when she jumps through the gate to get back to Midgard, there's a couple interesting things that happen that I think are worth mentioning. You've mentioned them before, right? She fell slowly and without end and sideways, not a plunge down, but a yank across. That is in House of Sky and Breast, chapter 70. That is actually when she is going to Prythian. She falls sideways. When she is coming back to Midgard, we get a clue of the same thing. So it was Bryce had dropped it down between worlds, and yet when she landed, she collided sideways with a wall. Apparently, magical interstellar travel didn't care about physics. So both of these, leaving Midgard and leaving Prythian, we get a yank sideways, which feels like it's important. I mean, to me, that implies the timelines add up, basically, right? That's what I think the implication is here. She's being yanked sideways instead of forwards or backwards.
Yeah.
But it's been explicitly called out twice now. I think it's important. And then, I mean, we know that the horn can control the Northern Rift as it exists now, but when Bryce falls back to Midgard, she creates a black hole, basically, right? A black hole that she falls through. And it's like kind of just for her, right? Like it seems like it closes quickly after that. We don't know what happens to it. I still think you're right about the horn, but I'm not clear on how the horn and the harp differ. I'm not clear why Thea needs to use the horn and the harp to open portals when we have Micah like transporting all of hell with just the horn, but Thea uses the horn and the harp.
Yeah. It is interesting that Thea is always said to be using the horn and the harp, and Bryce is able to seemingly do the same things with just the horn. Yeah, it's the difference. She's traveling within the same time, like it's just the same plane of time, and that's the difference. Is it just like one specific world that she's able to go back and forth between? Like she hasn't been able to go to a different world other than just Prythian.
Yeah, but we are able to get the demons of hell coming through, right? With Micah.
Yeah, Micah did use it to open a portal to hell.
Yeah, and at some point, Rigulus says it's the will of the wielder, of the person who wields the horn.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. This isn't our Crescent City season. We will come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. Yeah. We got to do a whole horn episode. Cool. Okay, Abby, how and why was the trove made?
Okay, so for the how, everything that's been made by the cauldron has been dipped into it. Right? So I think that these items of the trove were items that already existed, which lends a special interest to LMNOP's theory about the harp, right? And then I think they were dipped into the cauldron. I'm going to caveat that with, on the other hand, I'm not sure that we can trust this story at all because a lot of the Asteri history on Prythian is unreliable. And I think it is possible that the Asteri actually brought these items with them from outside of Prythian when they arrived. And I'm going to get into why I think that. So the why. We are told that the trove are instruments of conquest for the Asteri. So the quote for that is, "But my mother, Thea, used the time she served the Daglan to learn all she could about their instruments of conquest. The Dread Trove, we called it in secret. The mask, the harp, the crown, and the horn." That is House of Flame and Shadow, chapter 19. So the point was conquest. That's what we're told. But they had already conquered Prythian. So why are they making tools of conquest on Prythian when they've already kind of got what they need? But let's kind of go through item by item and talk about what the items of the trove can do and how they relate to what we've seen the Asteri kind of need in terms of survival, right? So first we have the mask, controlling the dead, right? So this one is really interesting. There's obvious advantages of this as a tool for conquest. However, I have two thoughts additionally on that. Was this a way for the Asteri? We know in Crescent City that the Asteri get second light from the dead, right? So they get the first light from the living fae, and then they get second light from the dead when the dead go through the final gates to wherever it is they go. So was the mask a way for the Asteri to get that second light from the dead, to control the dead and get them to give up whatever remaining power they had? The quote for that is, "But Danica was here. She answered me." Bryce's voice broke. "She was here. She and all of the newly dead from the past several centuries, just long enough that their living descendants and loved ones either forgot or don't come asking. They dwell here until then in relative comfort, unless they make themselves a nuisance and I decide to send them into the gate sooner. But when the dead are forgotten, their names no longer whispered to the wind, they are herded through the gate to become first light or second light, as it is called when the power comes from the dead. Ashes to ashes and all that." So if you have the mask that can control the dead, and if you have the harp, spoiler alert for my next theory, which can transfer power between people, right? Do you have a way of harvesting that second light on Prythian? Because there's nothing equivalent to the bone quarter in Prythian, right? When people die, they die. But if you have the mask, maybe you can get that dessert, as Rigulus calls it, from the dead. Maybe that's what the Asteri were using them for. It's the crown. This seems like a self-evident conquering tool, right? Controlling the minds of people. That would obviously be very helpful for the Asteri. However, I think this is interesting because it implies that the Asteri can't do this on their own, right? Like they are not Daemati. They do not have the powers that Rhys has of controlling people. Like I think it's interesting that the crown's powers and Rhys's Daemati powers are so similar, and that the Asteri would have to make an external tool to do this, implying that Daemati, which we've seen, right? That Daemati is not necessarily inherent to being an Asteri. Okay, and then the harp, which I think is really cool. So the power moving, I think actually might be the way that the tithe worked originally, right? Because the only Fae that we've been able to see give up kernels of power are the High Lords, and Feyre does not know how to do it instinctively. She has to be taught. We've never seen any other Fae be able to do something like the Tithe, right? But if you have the Harp, and the Harp can move power between souls, is that how the Asteri are taking these kernels of power from people? Are they using the Harp to do that? We also know the Harp opens doors. We have all these tunnels. We have all these like archways and tunnels and portals basically underneath Prythian that will quickly transport you from one place to another. I think the Harp was probably used to create those, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we still don't know, as Nesta points out, what happens when you play a melody on the Harp, but we shall see what that is. And then the horn, I don't know. Again, it's opening in portals within the world, but why do the Asteri want portals open within Prythian? Who are they bringing in? Who are they sending out? Where are they going? What's the end goal? And then I have stuff on the horn and the harp, but do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think to some of your original points, I mean, I don't think that we have good reason to believe. It depends on who you think has the truth, right? But I don't think we have good reason to believe that the cauldron created the trove. Amren thinks it. Nesta thinks it because Amren thinks it. But Celine describes the Daglin instruments of conquest, calls that the trove, and then she says the cauldron was of our world, and the horrors it produced, those two my parents would turn to their advantage. So she's saying the trove was its own thing, and then she talks about the cauldron. And she talks about Gwydion being dipped in the cauldron and all that stuff. So I don't think Celine's recountance does not make it seem like the trove was created using the cauldron, which then begs the question, why are they related? They clearly have a relationship. So why are they related?
Yeah, because they have Asteri power.
Yeah. On your why were they made? We went similar places with it, but slightly different. I think it's interesting, these all kind of mimic other powers that I think the Asteri saw and wanted. So the mask mimics necromancy, right? Which we see in Crescent City from Hypaxia et al. The crown, to your point, is basically like Daemati on fucking steroids. And then the harp, obviously, we have no idea what the harp is actually capable of. I actually like the idea that it was just their way of forcing food consumption.
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't make them kill, but they can't just kill. But I actually thought the harp might mimic word marks. But if word marks are their language, then maybe they don't need to mimic it at all. But I was wondering, in their conquests, have they been seeing powers that they don't implicitly have, and they then wanted to develop super versions of those powers that they would use for conquests?
Yeah.
And that's what the trove was built to do. And the horn, I don't think you need a complicated answer. The horn is they build armies that are not them. So they build armies that can't world walk. So they need to move the armies. So that's what the horn is for.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I actually had, so this is why I think so my next point on this was about using the horn and the harp together and what the point is of using the horn and the harp together, right? So we're told that the Asteri use the horn and the harp to open portals, not the horn alone, right? So the quote for that is, remembering the teachings of her former mistress, my mother knew she might wield the horn and the harp to open a door to bring the Fae to new heights, new wealth, and prestige. So those two together are kind of this, I'll get into it more. We are also told that the world walking power was discovered, kind of developed by the Asteri, not inherent to them, right? It's not like they could snap their fingers and world walk somewhere else, right? So we get for that, our brightest minds found ways to bend the fabric of the worlds, travel between them. Wayfarers, we called them world walkers.
Yeah, not all of them could do it.
So are the horn and the harp actually how the Asteri arrived on Prythian? That's why I'm saying maybe the trove is not actually of Prythian. Maybe the Asteri brought it with them, because they don't seem to be able to leave Midgard, right? Because I think if they could have left Midgard, they would have left when Bryce was fucking their shit up, right? But they don't have the harp on Midgard, and Bryce has the horn, obviously, right? So if these are tools of conquest, this was the beginning of their conquest on Prythian, was using the horn and the harp to get there. Maybe. It's kind of pre-cog. But is that how they arrived on Prythian instead of creating it on Prythian? I don't know, because they also clearly left Prythian without them somehow. My last thing on this, it feels like the horn and the harp. It feels like the horn versus the harp is kind of analogous to portals versus word gates that we get early in Throne of Glass, how there are times when Aelin can open a portal, but it's like temporary and it doesn't last, versus opening the word gate, which is used to transport armies, right? I'm just not totally clear on which one is which, because Thea uses the horn and the harp to transport her entire court to Midgard, right?
Yeah, do you need both to make it word gate material?
Do you need both to make it like fully functional? And does that mean the Northern Rift? This is why I'm saying it this way. The Northern Rift, which we know was used to open a gate to hell, was it the horn and the harp was used to create the Northern Rift? But now that the gate exists, the horn can do it on its own, right? Now that like the infrastructure is in place.
Closing it.
The horn broke, closing it, right? Well, maybe you needed the harp.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like when you use them together, you get this more permanent gate. And we're getting a little into my precog territory, so I don't want to go much further. But okay, Ronnie, why can only Nesta, Briallen, and Bryce wield the Trove, not the others who we know are made?
Okay. So I think a better way to phrase this question is, why do only some made people wield the Trove and not others who are made? And just to like caveat, yes, of course, Thea, Selene, and Helena also wield the Trove at a different time in a different book. So here's a complete list, I think, and you can tell me if I missed anybody, of people we see or we hear of wielding a Trove item. Nesta, of course, wields the crown, the mask, and the harp. Bryce wields the horn and the mask. Briallen wields the crown. Thea wields the lot. Selene wields the harp. Helena wields the horn. And then Peleus is said to wield the horn, but he breaks it when he wields it. I have Theon with an asterisk, because I don't know that he actually did, but he is said to have leveraged the Trove to overthrow the Daglin. And then I also have the Asteri, presumably, because this was supposed to be their fucking stuff. So I assume that they used it. And the rule that we're given in House of Earth and Blood is that you have to be starborn to wield the Trove. So Rune is reading Great Romances of the Fae, looking for information on the horn, and reads, it mentions here that the sacred objects were made only for Fae like them, that the horn worked only when that starlight flowed through it when it was filled with power. This claims that the starborn magic, in addition to a bunch of other crap, can be channeled through the sacred objects, bringing them to life. I sure as fuck have never been able to do anything like that, even with the Star Sword. But it says that's why the Prince of the Pit had to steal Peleus's blood to make the Crystallis to hunt the horn. It contained that essence. I think the horn could have been wielded by any of them, though. Hunt said, but if the Prince of the Pit had gotten his hands on the horn, he wouldn't be able to use it unless he had a starborn Fae to operate it.
Okay, wait. Hold on. I have so many thoughts about what you just said. Does that mean that Helena and Peleus's love story is in a book called Great Romances of the Fae? Like, that's pretty disgusting and fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, their whole relationship was propaganda. Yeah.
And the birth of the Crystallos has to be a lie, because Peleus is not actually starborn.
Peleus is not actually starborn. Yeah.
So where did that demon come from?
Like gifted him some power to be able to like blow that horn. I don't know.
It broke though. I don't know. Broke. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Not a Crescent City season.
But it did something. Like it closed most of it. So I don't know.
Not our Crescent City season. Almost our Crescent City season.
Not our Crescent City season. All right. So that's like the rule that we are given, right? Is like starborn to wield the Trove. Let's talk through each, because spoiler for my answer, I kind of think that it might just be if you have Starlight, Asteri power, you can. And so people that we haven't seen do it yet just haven't. But
that's what I think.
I want to talk about it more. Briallen is said to be able to wield the Trove because she was made by the Cauldron. She was made, that means she's got some Asteri witchiness in her. Like calls to like, Feyre murmured, looking to Amryn, who nodded. Because the Trove was made by the Cauldron, so might the Trove find its maker. Briallen wields the crown. She does not ultimately live. So like, I think she's up for grabs, personally. But she, of course, wields the crown. I want to note that while Elaine hasn't, Elaine probably can. She tries and volunteers to track the Trove in A Court of Silver Flames chapter 21, but Nesta says no. And that's kind of what sets Nesta off on her whole journey. So I'm not mad about it, but I do think that Elaine just hasn't. It's not that she can't. That's my belief so far until proven otherwise. Elaine volunteers. She says, I will track down the Dread Trove. And Nesta says, absolutely fucking not. Fine, I'll scry.
We actually have a quote confirming that. It's the same chapter. It's like calls to like, Amryn countered. You were made by the cauldron. You may track other objects made by it as well as Briallen can. And because you are made by it, you are immune to the influence and power of the trove. You might use them, yes, but they cannot be used upon you. A glance to Elaine, either of you.
Yes.
So confirmed. Yeah.
It said that she can. We haven't seen her do it.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. And like she's volunteered to do it. I think she will do it. I just think we have not seen her do it. I also think Feyre can. She just was pregnant the whole book and also did not. So like what I'm getting at is I think anybody who has like Starborn, Asterate, whatever, like I think this rule is going to end up holding up. Nesta can obviously wield all 3. Thea can wield all 4. And then Selene and Helena can wield the horn and the harp. So Thea wields obviously everything. And then Selene and Helena wield the harp and the horn respectively when they are escaping Midgard. So I lifted the harp again. Selene said, voice finally hitching with emotion. My sister did not sound the horn, and when I turned, she used the harp to send me the last of the distance to the archway. Helena didn't look back as she charged down the mountain away from the pass, buying me time. The power struck her mother, struck true. There was a choice for me then, to stay and avenge my mother, fight alongside my sister, or to survive, to shut the door behind me. And as I tumbled between worlds, the horn sounded. Peleus does use the horn, according to Adis in House of Flame and Shadow, so not fucking Rigilus Adis, to close the rift. But it breaks when he does that for some reason. I assume it's because Peleus does not have real light.
Yeah, I think it's because he's not actually Starborn. Yeah.
But it could also be, like, if the horn and the harp needed to open the rift and only the horn was available to close it, like, maybe that's valid. And that was the Asteri ordered Peleus to use the horn to close the northern rift to defend themselves against the attack. That also confuses me. Why the fuck didn't the Asteri just use the horn?
I have no idea. I have absolutely no fucking idea. It's definitely their toy, as you put it.
It's their instruments of conquest. Anyways.
Because, I don't know, maybe because they knew they needed, I don't know.
That's a whole.
Why did Thea leave behind the fucking mask and the crown when she went to Midgard? Why did she just leave those behind? Actually, because she's the only Starborn Fae, so maybe it's fine.
Yeah. In general, I actually think being made probably does hold up, and we just haven't seen Elaine or Feyre exercise the right, which are the two that are missing so far. But I'm open to your thoughts.
I agree with you. So Elaine, I think, can definitely do it.
I think Rhys is a question, though, because we've only seen women and a guy who broke shit.
Well, I think Rune could do it, too. Now that we have the antidote, he seems to kind of fully have some kind of starlight power. So I think potentially Rune would be able to wield any of these items, too. But again, we haven't seen it. And I have no idea how Rune would wield the horn at this point. What happens when Bryce dies? I have all the questions you have. I kind of disagree with you on Rhys and Feyre right now. I'm going to recycle an old theory. I don't think that Rhys and Feyre, or that Rhys at least still has the Starborn power. I think whatever ancestor decided to stop passing this story down also used the harp to remove that power from himself and put it somewhere. Because Rhys and Feyre are not sensitive to the mask the way that Helion is, right?
Yeah.
So the quotes we have are, Rhys tucked in his wings. It's specifically Rhys and Feyre saying this, right? Rhys tucked in his wings. It affects you that much? Doesn't it rake its cold claws down your senses? Helion asked. Not as much as all that, Feyre said. We can sense its power, but it didn't bother any of us so seriously. And then Helion has the quote about an ancestor of his using it. We know that an ancestor of Rhys used it. Rhys's used it, right? Thea is definitely Rhys's ancestor. So why doesn't Rhys have that same sensitivity? I think that power is gone. But let's add Helion and Lucian and maybe Gwyn to the list of made people who can potentially wield the trove as well.
Yeah.
They're on there if Gwyn is Lucian's daughter, but we see her glow. We've seen all of them glow, right? So let's add Gwyn to that list.
We've seen Feyre
one more. What?
I think Feyre is still in the game if Helion's in the game.
Feyre is in the game if Helion's in the game. That's totally fair. Nyx's also still very much in the game.
Yeah, so it's just Rhys is out. And I agree
just
with
Rhys is out.
Yeah.
Get him out of here. There's one more character. She's very minor, but Miriam was also made with an item from the cauldron, from the trove. So in theory, she should be able to wield the trove. I don't know if Miriam's ever coming back, but in theory, Miriam should be able to.
And Miriam's
wield
in possession of the cauldron right now.
Miriam's in possession of the cauldron. Yeah. If the story
Miriam
swings back that way,
Cachet might be after her.
Well, we'll get into that in our next question. I will. All right. I don't have any more on that, do you?
Okay. All right. Abby, where was each trove item found and how do we think it got there?
Okay. Again, the horn or the harp and the horn are kind of accounted for. We know where they've been. We know what happened. We don't need to talk about that as much, I don't think. Thea left the mask and the crown behind when she went to Midgard. I can kind of understand the thought process there. At that point in time, only her and her 2 daughters, in theory, were the Starborn Fae on Prythian. So again, this is in theory. I don't know this, but like in theory, no one else could use them if they left them behind. And she needed the horn and harp to be able to world walk, right? So like, I kind of get it. I just also think it's really interesting that in Celine's video, we get absolutely no mention of what happened to the mask or the crown. Like she just talks about them and then is like, not like, while I was gone, this person used the mask, this person used the crown. Like it
was
definitely
just like on Thea's head and lap.
Yeah, and that's the last we see of
time that we saw it in her TED Talk.
Yeah. All right. So the mask we find at the bottom of the bog of Orid. So let's talk about what we know about Orid. It used to be a game park for the Asteri. So the quote we have for that is, my parents often went hunting in the vast slice of land that Dagland had kept for their private game park, where they had crafted terrible monsters to serve as worthy prey. It was there he met his death. We know it's where Fionn died, a dark-haired, pale creature that could have been the relative of the Knock in Jessica's gallery, dragged a bound and gagged Fionn into the inky depths of the bog, the once proud king screaming as he went under. But I know some of you might be thinking, oh, maybe Fionn had the mask on him when he drowned, and that's how it ended up at the bottom of the bog of Orid. We know that's not true because Thea used the mask during her reign after Fionn was killed. So the quote we have for that is, my mother returned that day with only Peleus and my father's blades. As she had helped make them, they answered to the call in her blood, to her very power. Bryce knew that call. Blah, blah, blah. And then she took the trove for herself. Thea sat enthroned, the harp and horn beside her, the mask in her lap, and the crown atop her head. Unchecked, limitless power sat upon that throne. Bryce could barely get a breath down. So Fionn died at the bottom of the bog of Orid, but the mask lived on after that, right? So we already kind of mentioned this, but what we know about the bodies at the bottom of the bog of Orid are that, first of all, there are thousands and thousands of bodies in Orid. The quote is, this is Silver Flames chapter 36. She could feel them around her, the dead, feel their long rotted bodies, some mere bones and others preserved, half eaten beneath their ancient armor. Their weapons lay nearby, discarded and ignored by the creatures of the bog, who had been more interested in feeding on decaying flesh, even long rotted. Thousands and thousands of bodies, but she would not call thousands, not yet. So we have thousands of bodies. And then we have this line again, like a forest rising from the water, spear after spear after spear appeared. Then the helmets dripping water, some rusted, some shining as if freshly forged, and beneath those helmets skulls, a line of them a legion, some merely collections of upright bones, jaws hanging and eyes unseeing, some half-preserved decaying flesh flapping over the exposed ribs. Judging by their fine armor, they were warriors and kings and princes and lords. That's all Silver Flames chapter 36. We are also told that these are honored dead. So the quote we get for that is, Nesta let the power flow through her, allowing the mass to do as it wished, raising the honored dead who had once been buried here and had suffered the sacrilege of serving as an endless meal to the Kelpie and his ilk. So I think we kind of have two options here. One, somehow the Bog of Orid, because we know it existed during Fionn, it was always the Bog of Orid, right? Somehow that became a burial ground, and some ancient king or something was like buried with the mask, basically. And then Nesta found it. I don't really know the story there. Second option, you mentioned that the mask could be used as a tool for warfare, right? I think that was one of our opening quotes of this episode. I think maybe this was the site of a battle. Again, I don't know how that fits in with it being a bog. I don't know if it's like you can have a battle on a bog, but like this was the site of a battle. Many, many, many people were slayed. Who's going to war in the middle, right? What was this war about, if that is what it is? And now the army lies here. The mask was being worn by the leader of that army and is now forgotten. So I don't know. Those are loose theories.
Yeah. I mean, this whole I feel like this whole question is kind of loose. It's interesting, right, that I think multiple times it's mentioned that the mask was made for this long forgotten king. And then it's found where
Fion is.
Died.
Yeah.
And where his body is. And the mask clearly wants to be with certain people. Like it flies
to Nesta.
To
So you think it's like the ring and it just made its way there? Like the ring trying to get back to Sauron?
Maybe.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, again, there's only one forgotten king on Prythian.
Right. Exactly one king, period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. The only other thing, like, again, it's loose, but like the only person we know in the middle who's collecting a bunch of shit
is the Weaver. Yeah. You think she's going for a walk to the bog and throwing in items of the trove? Maybe.
No, I think the Kelpie are stealing from her.
Well, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
So the crown, this one is a little interesting. Let's talk about Miriam again. Quote for that. Miriam died, a spear through her chest during the last battle at the sea, Rhys explained. She bled out while she was carried to safety, but Dracon knew of a sacred hidden island where an object of great and terrible power had been concealed, an object made by the cauldron itself, legend claimed. He brought her there to Credia, using the item to resurrect her, make her immortal, as you were made, Feyre. I think by process of elimination, this has to be the crown, right? Like, it doesn't really match the crown's powers, but if an object made by the cauldron, like, doesn't that have to be the crown? We know where the mask is. We know where the harp is. We know where the horn is.
Interesting. You think it was the crown over the mask?
I think the mask's powers fit better. Maybe it was the mask.
I'd be more inclined to believe, because we know that the mask ended up in a place that was not where we left it. So it had to move. But I hadn't really thought, I hadn't thought too much about what brought Miriam back. It's a great point.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be something from the trove.
It's one of them.
Yeah.
There's not a fucking fifth item at this point.
And we don't know. So the reason I think it might be the crown is because it kind of lines up with our timeline, right? So we are told that Briallen potentially found the crown during the events of ACOTAR. The quote for that is, if Briallen has the crown, it's possible she's had it for a while, and it's why the other queens fled to their own territories. Maybe they thought she'd use it on them and ran. Maybe she even found it here during the war while we were all distracted with fighting Hybern and used it to pull her forces back to bide her time. It could be what brought her to Cochet's attention, that it's what he wants from her. We know that Credia has been like under intense wards. No one can even find it. Asriel can't find it during the events of the war, but then they all leave, right? The people who are holding the magic, the people who are holding the spells leave and come fight. So did that free up Briallen to basically find the crown, be able to track it down using her maid essence? Did some of those wards leave when the people left? I don't really know. Pretty loose. But I have truly no thoughts on where the crown would have been.
Yeah, I mean, what do we know about the crown? Briallen got to it first.
Briallen got there first.
We last saw it on the page on Thea's head.
Yeah, 15,000 years ago.
In Prythian.
In the prison.
In the prison. In the palace. And that's about all we know. And Briallen is allied with Baron and Cochet. Is there any pattern to... The harp was found in the prison. The mask was found in the bog. The horn was on a totally different planet.
Asteri stronghold.
Yeah, like, is there... Yeah, I don't think there is.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think this was a question from one of our Discorders, and guys, we truly have no earthly idea where the crown was.
Sometimes your questions are our questions, too.
This is a question without an answer. Yeah. We don't know where Briallen found the crown. Sorry.
Pre-cog?
Cool. All right, Pre-cog corner.
You want to go first?
Sure. All right. This is more of a question Pre-cog than an answer Pre-cog. But you brought up, I think twice in the last 2 episodes that we've recorded, that Nesta has a bargain with the cauldron. In A Court of Silver Flames, chapter 77, she says, I give it back. If you show me how to save her, you can have it back. The world paused, worlds beyond their own pause. Nesta buried her face in the cold sweat of Feyre's neck. She opened that place within herself and said to the mother to the cauldron, I'll give back what I took from you. Just show me how to save them, her and Rhysand and the baby. And then the baby, Rhysand, Feyre are saved. Nesta is giving back what she took. I give it back, Nesta said one more time, and mask and crown tumbled from her head. The light exploded, blinding and warm, a wind sweeping past them as if gathering every shard of itself out of the room. And as it faded, dark ink splashed upon Nesta's back, visible through her half-shredded shirt, as if it were a wave crashing upon the shore, a bargain with the cauldron itself. And the mother stops some of this, right? After Nesta is giving it back and after the bargain tattoo is thrown. Bargain tattoos only apply if the bargain is still in place, right? They disappear after the bargain is fulfilled. The bargain is, if you show me how to save her, you can have it back. This bargain seems to be unfulfilled, right? I know that Nesta still has some of her power, but she tried to give it back. Like, she tried to give it back, and the mother was like, no, you can keep a little. It's okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, like, what are the implications of this bargain not being fulfilled? Like, who didn't hold up their end of the bargain? Do Feyre and Rhys and the baby still need
to be
saving?
Saved. Yeah.
Like, is Nesta going to be shown how to save them later? Is she going to continue to be shown how to save them until she gives all of this power back? Like, is there still a continuing to give power back thread that is going to be pulled on throughout the remainder of this series until everyone is like truly saved?
Yeah.
It feels weird that this bargain is still open.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I agree with you.
I'm not expecting an answer. It's a question, but it's also a theory. Like, it feels odd that this bargain is unfulfilled.
Yeah, I agree.
Because now it's no longer something she took. Now it's something she's given.
Well, maybe the mother preventing that last bit of magic from leaving her is the unfulfilled part. Maybe she'll have to give that up at some point.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's as simple as that.
Cool. Okay,
what's yours?
I want to talk about, once again, the horn and the harp, because I noticed something and I think it's really cool. And I'm pretty convinced I'm right, which I love. I think that using the horn and the harp together is what has created all of the various mysterious archways we see around Prythian. And that when they are used together, you create an archway. And it is a permanent marker on the landscape. So I'm going to take you through the quotes of why I think that. When Thea opens the portal to talk to Hel, the quote we get is, Thea nodded once slowly as if making a decision and then played the horn and the harp. A portal between worlds swirled. It solidified an archway to nowhere. A handsome golden-haired male stood before it with eyes like blue opals. So we have an archway solidifying. When Bryce opens a portal using only the horn to get back to Midgard, there is no archway. We have Bryce sent her power searing through her star again, right into the crystal sarcophagus. Crystal like the gate that had opened the way to this world. The sarcophagus glowed and then darkened into a pit. So we have a pit opening, but there is no archway. When Thea opens the door to Midgard, she does it in the harp chamber. The quote we get for that is, in a chamber, this chamber, if the 8-pointed star on the floor was any indication, though the celestial carvings had not yet been added, beside red-haired Faye, who looked alarmingly like Bryce's father, Helena and Selena appeared, grown and beautiful and yet still young, gangly. Teenagers in the center of the chamber, a gate opened to a land of green and sunshine, and staring there among the greenery waiting for them. We know that's Rigelus. We know from the cave drawings that this also actually created an archway. The quote we get for that is, an archway had been etched, stars glimmering around it, and in that archway stood a male figure, the image created with impressive. His hand was upraised in greeting, and Bryce might have looked closer had the Midgard worm not exploded from the river behind them. So here we have an archway. Bryce did not get the chance to look close. I'm willing to bet good money that was Rigelus, right? Because we know this is Celine's story. Rigelus waving at them through the archway, his hand upraised in greeting. There is an archway in the harp chamber to this day. The light of the siphon atop Cassian's hand revealed an archway and openness, and there it was. Raised symbols carved into the floor cast shadows against the crimson light. The entire round chamber was full of them, and in its center, the golden harp covered an intricate embossing set with silver streaks. So Cassian is standing in an archway in the harp chamber where Thea used the harp and the horn to open a portal to Midgard. And the flip side of that, there is an archway in Midgard where they came through. So the quote for that is, the place where we had first entered this world was nearby. We'd been camping here in part so that my mother could eventually open a portal again and recruit more Fae to fight. And then Selene escapes back through an archway. Helena grabbed Celine's hand and hauled her towards the far edge of the camp, towards the snow-crusted peak ahead, a natural archway of stone, a gateway. So every time the harp and the horn are used together, we get an archway. I think this is the physical manifestation of that power that says, hey, if you see an archway, not obviously any kind of archway, but an archway that is distinct and standing out, that means the horn and the harp have been used here. World walking has happened here. This matters for a couple reasons. The first one is the passive analysis, right?
Yeah.
So we get long ago, so long ago they don't even have a precise date for it, a great war was fought between the Fae and the ancient beings who oppressed them. This is in Silver Flames. One of its key battles was here in these mountains. Our forces were battered and outnumbered, and for some reason the enemy was desperate to reach the stone at the top of Romiel. We were never taught the reason why. I think it's been forgotten, but a young Illyrian warrior named Analius held the line against the enemy soldiers for days. He found a natural archway of stone amongst the tangle of boulders and made this that his bottleneck. We know that Thea and Fionn were on top of Romiel with two cloaked figures, a stone's throw, right, from the passive Analius and this archway. We know that Thea could wield the harp and the horn. I'm now betting even more money that these were not creatures of Prythian who were with them on top of Romiel. I think that Thea used the harp and the horn to open a world walking portal on top of Romiel and bring in, I don't know who, my money's on Princes of Hell, but bring in someone to create the Star Sword and to create Truth Teller. And I think the archway is part of that proof. We also have, this is really interesting, in the book, The Song of Beginning, we just did our Cauldron episode. We talked all about beginnings and endings. And the book, The Song of Beginning, that Irene reads about the Valg in the Torre Chesme. We have the illustration revealed a barren crag, an army of soldiers in dark armor kneeling before it. Kneeling before what was atop the crag, a towering gate, no wall flanking it, no keep behind it, as if someone had built the gateway of black stone out of thin air. There were no doors within the archway, or only swirling black nothing, beams of it shot from the void, some foul corruption of the sun, blah, blah, blah. We know that the Asteri were once on Aurelia, right? This is why I think the horn and the harp might have come from somewhere else. Did they use the horn and the harp to open these gateways that the Valg then later used? The Valg used them. The Valg corrupted them. The Valg figured out how to basically do what Bryce does with the Northern Rift, use the existing gateways to kind of bring their armies through, right? And then we know that Maeve also got into Aurelia through an archway. We have the spider took a step forward and Nesrid braced herself, but the spider lifted a thin clawed leg and pointed to one of the polished carved walls. We wait, and as her eyes at last adjusted to the dimness, Nesrin saw what the spider pointed to, a carving of an archway, a gate, and a cloaked figure standing within it. So I think that the horn and the harp created all of these archways. So the horn and the harp has been on Aurelia, we know it's been on Midgard, it's been on Prythian, and that this is a clue here that world walking has happened.
Is it the horn and the harp have to be there, or is it just a sign of world walking happening? Because then what that would mean, right, is that is like the paper trail of the horn and the harp, not just anyone who's ever world walked. Like, are you saying that people who learned to world walk, like Maeve, couldn't world walk without something like that?
I don't know. But the reason why I don't know if it's Maeve learned how to basically use the power of the horn and the harp to create like a word gate, right? But the word gate itself is filled with archways, but it does not leave an archway behind once Aelin closes it, right?
Yeah, once it's closed, yeah.
And again, when Bryce only uses the horn, we have no archway. We have a black pit. There is no archway.
Same with word marks opening a portal.
Yeah, same with portals.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I think it's when you use them together that it's like, this is where this has happened. It makes, like, a lot of the times they're described as breathing, like there's a lot of black stone. There's definitely something going on with wordstone in this too, possibly. I haven't worked that in here yet, but I think there's enough clues to piece together that the archways are the paper trail, exactly what you said, of the world walking.
Interesting.
Specifically with the horn and the harp at this point.
So then the Asteri don't actually know how to wield that power, or at least these Asteri, like whoever's doing this, they don't actually know how to world walk themselves. They're using
to do this. That's my whole point, because if they did, they would have left Midgard when they were about to lose. If this was a power inherent to the Asteri, they would not all be in the fucking void right now.
Yeah. which I think, which I like a lot. I think that's why the Trove exists. I think they actually are just frauds. Like, I think they leech off of other people's power, and they've created this Trove to mimic other people's power because they don't know. Like, they don't
which makes you
have
wonder
it.
where the world walking power actually originated from.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it is the throne of glass gods if they're not Asteri, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Because they are able to come to worlds, seemingly.
We need to talk to Maeve.
We need to talk to Maeve. Yeah, because the quote is, I can't remember if it's like discovered world walking or figured out how to world walk.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not our Crescent City season. This is not our Crescent City season, but there, like, I think we need to do an episode on the Asteri because there's also, I'm pretty sure, a quote for, like, yes, they like tout around this whole, like, we are stars, but they're not.
So it's what Vespers says is, our brightest minds found ways to bend the fabric of worlds, to travel between them. Wayfarers, we called them world walkers. So it's almost like science, right? It's almost like tech rather than magic. Like, we found a way to do this rather than we were born being able to do this, you know?
Yeah.
So now that they don't have, Celine took the harp with her, right? They couldn't leave for 15,000 years. They couldn't leave, which kind of explains a little bit too about, well, I still don't know because the archways existed and the horn existed, but they didn't want to leave until the very end. Okay. Sorry, that was a long-winded precog theory, but I hope it got somewhere.
No,
I think it got somewhere. All right, what are you reading?
I am still reading The Will of the Many. I accidentally read A Court of Silver Flames because it was just so fun. But now I'm back on The Will of the Many. I think I agree with you. I know you're on the strength of the few. The Will of the Many was easy to put down for me for the first, like, third.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the second half and it's harder, like, to put down, which is my way of saying it's better. So I enjoy it. It's more, to me, it feels more like books that I read when I was younger, where it's like, frankly, less mature concepts, which I don't know how I like. That's not a problem. It's just more like cookie cutter than what I have been used to reading for the last, like, several years.
It's very
and I don't know
cookie
if it's gonna
cutter.
stay that way.
So book 2 is certainly more complicated, but the basic story is kind of not. There's, at least so far, like, there's no questioning of motivations, like, and I could be wrong, right? There's no really, like, kind of like duplicitous characters. There is good and there is evil. And then there is this, like, fucking complicated magic system that we spend pages and pages getting into, like, this scientific method behind. And at the end of the day, it's like, does this matter? Is this important? You could have explained this in a sentence. You know, like, I don't know. That's kind of how I'm feeling. That being said, now that I'm in the back third of the strength of a few, I really like it, but it's the character moments that are driving it for me, not this, like, overly complicated magic system.
Yeah. How do I say this? It's not messy writing. It's not poorly plotted, in my opinion. Like, I've read, we've talked about books recently where I, like, put it down and I was like, that was a mess.
Yeah.
That was not, like, definitely not the case. And I obviously haven't finished the first book. I'm withholding judgment until I finish. But so far, I feel like it's going to be a good book. I just don't know how gripping it's gonna be yet.
I would still say it's a good book. Like, I'm still enjoying reading it. These are kind of like nitpicks, but they are what prevent it from being, like, a top tier read, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people were like, this is, like, the best book I've read, like, this year, basically.
Yeah. Like, there are people who were like, this rivals, like, you know, Kingdom of Ash for me, or, like, whatever. Like, insert your like god tier Sarah J. Maas book, whatever that is.
No, I will say the second book reminds me a lot of Kingdom of Ash, but in the things that I hated about Kingdom of Ash.
Well, like, Kingdom of Ash is not a good one for you. Like, you do not actually like Kingdom of Ash that much.
Yeah.
And I honestly, if I had to pick a favorite Throne of Glass book, it wouldn't be my favorite either. Not by a long shot, actually. No. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what it would be, though. I think it would be Heir of Fire.
I think it'd be Heir of Fire or Tower of Dawn for me.
I love Heir of Fire.
Yeah, Heir of Fire is good.
I love a training trope. I just do. I love, like...
I mean, Queen of Shadows is good, too. Yeah.
I confuse Queen of Shadows and Empire of Storms all the time, and I know I shouldn't. Just the titles. Like, literally just what they're called. Anyways, yeah. So that's I'm reading. I'm back to The Will of the Many. But
in my opinion, it's a solid B, grade wise, for the book. Again, I'm not done with Strength of the Few, so I'm willing to change that. It is also the first book I've read written by a man in a year, which could be part of this.
Stylistically, it's so different.
It's so different. It's so
very like straightforward.
Barren.
Yeah, not incredibly descriptive. And it's not, again, it's not like a bad thing, but it's very stylistically different from what I've been reading. So
yeah,
it's been good.
Yeah. All right. We are on social media. We are Dragons in the Details Pod on pretty much any platform, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We are Dragons in the Details Pod at gmail.com. We are Dragons in the Details server. I always get this wrong. We're on Discord. We'll link it in the show notes. Shout out to our Discord. Again, our Let Us Baby book club is doing a Maasverse book club, read along basically in publication order. They are literally constantly blowing up my phone. It's fucking great. There's so many good conversations. Guys, a lot of you DM me on Instagram and tell me all your theories and say I have no one else to talk to about these books. I love them so much. I love that. Keep doing that. But I want you to know that that is what our Discord is for. Like, if you are looking for a community of like-minded people who just want to talk about these books, that is our Discord. They are there. Love when new people join. Like,
they're in a video chat right now.
They're literally in a video chat right now talking about the Maasverse.
Which, by the way, is not required, but one of the book club meetups is happening currently.
Yeah. So big shout out to our Discord. And we have a website, dragonsinthedetails.com. You can also reach out to us there. There is a contact form there. That is it from us this week. As always, if you like what we do, please subscribe. Please like. Please comment. Please like us on Spotify, guys, if you're listening to us. And I know that a lot of you are subscribed to us, but you haven't liked us. It really helps us out if you would just take the 10 seconds it takes to give us however many stars you want. Honestly, I'm not going to demand 5. I would like a clear, unbiased opinion, but, really helps us out. That is it from us this week. Stay warm, guys. It's Hurricane Fern. It's Winter Storm Fern for us right now.
Winter Storm Fern. It's probably fine by now, but maybe it's not. We don't know the future.
I'm going to have snow the rest. Oh, you mean the 2 weeks from now when this releases?
Yeah. Like we're living in January 25th, but this is not January 25th.
Yeah. That's it. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.